Hi, I'm Ted Howard, and I just want to show you what earth energy lines can do to trees and shrubs, particularly trees. It's very fascinating. These negative earth lines that are every 6 feet, 8 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet, 30 feet, they run globally through the world. It forms a grid on the earth. And trees are very sensitive to this. It's very interesting. In my observation in 40 years of landscaping and doing flower gardens, and where these trees and even bushes, if they're planted on 1 or 2 or 3 negative lines, you'll see a distinct curve and or reluctance to grow in a bush or a rose. You'll see this, and it's very obvious. You just have to look in your environment and look around and observe, and you'll see that these trees that lean out, you think they just lean out because they're going to the sun. No, it's because they're getting away from negative lines. And I'll be showing you some excellent examples of what I mean in this video. The doctors who discovered these earth energy lines back in the 30s and 40s, Dr. Hartman and Dr. Curry, they were both medical doctors and scientists, and they discovered these lines, and they found that they have very detrimental effects when they cross over. Okay, this is a very dramatic example of 4 or 5 negative lines that I measured, and you can see, and not only that, but the lines go right to the transformers, and it's the transformers that give off the radiation that these negative lines are magnetic and attract. So they make these lines even more detrimental than they are without the excess radiation from the power lines. Now, yes, it's minor. The amount of radiation that comes from the transformers aren't a great amount, but the problem is the negative lines attract that and attracts it all day long. It's not just for a few hours, it's 24/7. So they make and then if you have 4 or 5 that are converging at the same spot, it makes them even more detrimental. So this is a perfect example of the tree growing out and away from the negative lines. It can't get away because there's like 4 of them, 5 of them that cross over. And you can see the growth that's down here. It's trying to do it, and if you look up here, you'll see all this bark that's loose. This is all, now bark comes loose also, but this is just a mild example of the bark being loose. There's other examples where you actually see the cancerous-like tumors that are on there, and we'll show you those a little later. This is just to show you where there's no negative lines converging at the trunk. It's straight, it's healthy, it's full, versus the one that is this way. Now it's full, but you can see the line. There must be some positive lines there too, because normally if it's just 4 negative lines, it will dwarf the tree, kind of like over here. If you look over there, and these lines, I measured those, and you can see where one is leaning out this way. The lines go right towards the power lines over there, and so they attract the radiation that comes off of the power lines. The negative lines do. Yeah, this is another example of the influence of the negative earth line. If you look down here, here's a crack. This is one of the lines, made a crack. Earth lines goes right up here. There was a dead azalea here a few days ago. They pulled it out. And then as you go up the vine here, you'll see that it's away from the negative line. The growth is fine. To the right is fine. But as you go straight up, you'll see there's a big blank spot there. That's right. These lines, they go up as well as directional. So they're 3-dimensional. So the influence of the negative line going up, the plant doesn't grow there. So that's just another example. And over here, there's these cracks in the wall. But if you notice, I measured it, and there's this crack that runs down here. It's very subtle, but the cracks are subtle also. So it's not a strong negative line, and you can see the damage that it did to the wall. And that just shows you the subtle effect of the negative lines. Okay, here's another example of the wall I was talking about. This is missing. This happened during the 1994 earthquake. However, when I measured the negative lines that were here, there was 4 or 5, I can't remember, but there was at least 4 and they converged right here. And this is where it was a weak spot. And guess where the wall fell apart? Right here. So that's what I'm talking about. It's that, you know, the wall would have been weak anyway, but the earthquake shook it up. And you can see there's other cracks on the wall here. That's because from the negative lines, that's where they go. They're running this. These are the south-north lines. And that's just one more example of the effect of the subtle energy lines, that when they converge, when they cross over, that's where they become very detrimental. This is an example of positive lines and negative lines colliding with one another. If we take a look at this rose that was planted here, this rose line, you'll see that this one's bigger. It's not blooming as much, but it's bigger than this one. This has a positive line. There's also a negative line that runs this way. This is the southeast Curry line. It runs this way. So where these roses don't have a positive line, they're smaller, not as well developed. This one now has a little stronger positive line. You can see how much bigger it is compared to ones that don't have a positive line. All of this is on a negative line. Now we come to here, and here's the same bushes that are in full bloom. Now there's a negative line that runs behind there, but there's two strong positive lines that run this way. And so those positive lines counteract the negative lines much stronger, and that's why the roses are in full bloom here. So here we are in the North Hollywood Park, and this is just to show you there's three negative lines that go through this tree. And what's interesting is, aside from the fact that it's leaning away from the negative lines as best as it can, you can see the excess roots on the top. But if you also notice on the ground, behind it, where the negative lines are not, there's more grass, but in front, the ground is, you know, it's dirt. That's just a subtle indication that things don't like to grow in this particular area. They will grow, like the tree, because it has a strong strength, and it doesn't die. But if you back up and look at the tree, yes, it's old. There's lots of old trees here that are doing fine. But if you look at it, it's like half dead versus the one that's right here, which is the same size trunk, the same kind of tree, and you'll see there's obviously no negative lines going through this one. But if you look at this one here, there's going to be some negative lines. I didn't measure this one. The original one here, the first one I measured, there's three negative lines that go through it. And you can see how it just, the health of the plant. And what was really revealing is the fact around the ground where the negative lines are going through, things don't want to grow there. But you go behind the tree where there's no negative lines and there's more grass and weeds and stuff. So the point of showing you all these natural shapes that bushes and trees respond to from the negative lines is important. But what's even more important is that these negative lines run everywhere, and they go through your house, and they go upwards. They're three-dimensional. They're not just one direction. And that's the real problem, is where these lines cross over inside your house. If it's where you sleep or where you work for 5 hours or 6 hours, these lines, if you get 3 or 4 lines cross over, it can be very detrimental to your health. It doesn't show right away, but over the years, it can. And the point of showing you the effects of these negative lines in nature is to show you that they can affect you and your health and your children, and there's ways to correct them. If they go over your bed, the easiest way to do is just to move the bed a couple feet and get off the line, but the lines are still there. I know how to correct these lines, to turn them into positive lines, and that's what I really want to express and help you with if you want. For more information, you can call me or go to my website, floweredbyhoward.com, and contact me there. I'd be more than glad to go a little more into detail, but the main thing is to transform these natural negative earth lines that are more negative now because of the electricity that the world lives on, is to turn them into a positive line, which can be done.